The first round of the 2022 NBA playoffs have exposed quite a few things to us as fans, and while there are some things going down that most people saw coming, there has honestly been an equally large number of surprises in many of these series. Today, though, we'll be focusing on two franchises connected by a trade that they made at this year's trade deadline, being the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets, and we'll be discussing why that trade somehow managed to hinder both of them in hindsight. The playoffs were the main reason why each team were motivated to do the deal, and yet as a result of the deal, both teams are now facing troubling futures as a result of it. Of course, the trade I'm referring to is the one where the teams swapped Ben Simmons and James Harden along with the rest of the players and assets that were included, and in today's video, we'll be going over all of it, why things went wrong for each side, and what is then going to happen in each team's future because of it. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. PrizePicks is the perfect service for all of us basketball fans here because when you're involved, it makes watching the games every night so much more fun and engaging. Basically, it's an application that provides you with lines on all kinds of individual player props, such as points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made, amongst others, and you simply have to choose whether you believe they will record over the set amount in the line or under the set amount in the line. Make your selections, wager however much you want to, and if your picks hit, you can win some big money. For some picks that I'm looking at making for today's slate of games, I'm thinking of going with Trae Young to score over 24.5 points, CJ McCollum to score over 23.5 points, and Tyler Hero to make over 2.5 threes. If this sounds at all intriguing to you, then go use the link down in the description of the video and sign up today, and use promo code REFERENCE to receive a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The full details of this trade were that the 76ers received James Harden and Paul Millsap in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. At the time, Ben Simmons had not yet played a game during the season, but the belief was that he would be ready to play for his new team once traded, and on the flip side, James Harden grew tired of the never-ending off-court drama in Brooklyn and wanted a fresh start elsewhere to focus on winning a title. When the trade went down, obviously because of how big the story was, everyone had thoughts on the deal, but for the most part, the consensus was that both teams benefited in their own way from it, and it could be viewed as a win-win for both teams involved. Fast forward to the present, and the Brooklyn Nets have already been eliminated from the playoffs after getting swept in the first round, and the Sixers are seemingly imploding after getting off to a massive 3-0 lead in their series, and all of a sudden that win-win trade is starting to look like a lose-lose situation. We'll start the discussion with the Brooklyn Nets side of things. The Nets, from the very beginning of the year, were viewed as the favorites to win it all. They had the most talented big three on paper, and that will reasonably come with lofty expectations. Because of the fact that Kyrie Irving was unable to play for over half of the year, along with the injury bug striking periodically, the team was behind in the standings, so they brought Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond in to hopefully plug some of their holes. The team's weakest position was at center, so in theory Andre Drummond stepping into the starting role there was a big upgrade. You can never have too much shooting, so Seth Curry's lights-out perimeter jumper was a nice bonus, and Ben Simmons was supposed to be ready to go after a few weeks of training after the trade to be ready for a playoff push. The Nets' defense was so porous because of their lack of interior defenders, along with the fact that most of their backcourt players do naturally struggle defensively, so Ben Simmons and his all-defense caliber defending at the very least should have helped there to ease the load of players like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Simmons was never going to be expected to score as much as he was in Philadelphia because of the fact that he was now surrounded by so many capable scorers, so he could focus more on his playmaking and defending, but he never even played a game for them this year. Every week, reporters would say that Ben was preparing for a return in the near future, and then a few days later we would be told that his return was pushed back, and that was a cycle that continued all the way until the very end when the Nets officially got eliminated by the Celtics. The Nets can't do anything but prepare for next season now, but this is exactly why the Simmons trade hurt them so much, because it greatly hampers their ability to make moves to retool for a bounce-back year. Kevin Durant is still under contract for the long haul, but Kyrie Irving has a player option for next season, and Ben Simmons still has 3 years left on his max contract as well. Then Seth Curry only has 1 year left on his contract next year, Patty Mills has a player option, Joe Harris will be back but he's coming off of a serious injury, and the young players Cam Thomas, Day'Ron Sharpe, and Kessler Edwards round out their returning roster. They won't be able to afford to retain important role player Bruce Brown, and they also won't be able to retain Andre Drummond because of his price tag, along with the likely departures of players like Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Nicholas Claxton, so their depth is taking a huge hit without the money available to replace it. The Ben Simmons trade was a move for them to be able to go all in on this season, and it backfired as hard as it possibly could have, resulting in a first-round sweep. Now, to turn our attention to things from the perspective of the Philadelphia 76ers, they originally made this move because without Ben Simmons playing for them, they were severely lacking in shot creation and playmaking from a lead guard, and way too much of the burden was placed on Joel Embiid's shoulders. Youngster Tyrese Maxey has shown tremendous potential this year as a shot creator and playmaker, but his best games have typically come when pressure is low, and his inexperience as a second-year player can definitely show in important moments. So it was reasonable for the Sixers to look at someone like James Harden as a more experienced playmaker and shot creator to help plug the massive hole that they had there, especially because he's a former MVP winner and scoring champion. In many ways, Harden has been a breath of fresh air on this Sixers team because his passing ability and court vision definitely have translated, and he's been creating a ton of easy looks for those around him. But what the Sixers desperately needed was someone who could score the ball at a high level when the defense puts all of their focus on slowing down Joel Embiid, and Harden's days as a dominant scorer are looking to be over. Last year, James Harden suffered a serious hamstring injury in the playoffs that he tried to rush back from and play through. This year, that same hamstring has continued to nag him, and from watching him play, he just doesn't have the burst or explosiveness off the dribble that he once had, and it has greatly hampered his ability to create the separation that he has become notorious for. This is what has been happening against the Raptors over the last few games because their entire game plan has become to double-team Joel Embiid every opportunity that they get, and yet Harden only attempted 11 shots last game while they were doing that, which obviously is not enough. If the Sixers flame out of the playoffs early this year, then they too will have a decision to make. Harden will likely be back next season because he has a player option that he intends to opt into, but after that, reports have stated that he's expecting to sign another long-term max contract extension. Based on how Harden is performing on the court right now, a max contract extension would potentially look like something in the range of $220 million over 4 years. I'm going to go on record right now by saying that if they give him a contract extension that large, then it will go down as equally disastrous as the Russell Westbrook and John Wall extensions have gone down, and it would kill the Sixers' future ability to contend. If Harden's best days are behind him, then there will undoubtedly be regret for not using Simmons to trade him for a player closer to their prime to pair with Joel Embiid. They would have then 2 massive contracts hampering their ability to build a team with any sort of depth, pairing Harden's potential contract with the already disastrous Tobias Harris contract on that payroll. Their success in this year's playoffs will dictate a lot of it, but ultimately they have a big decision to make. Everyone with eyes can see that James Harden just isn't the player that he once was, but the temptation of wanting to keep him around is absolutely going to be there for general manager Daryl Morey, who will be inclined to stay loyal to Harden. Nothing about this situation clearly is ideal for either team involved, hence why it now appears to be a lose-lose trade for both of them. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts on what has come as a result of this trade. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.